Yeah, no, we're skipping the intro. We just received the short story. 10,772 word, 60,267 character, 15-page short story about none other than 𝗷𝗪𝙧𝙤𝙪. Yes, 𝗬𝗹𝑦 is also in there and she totally ate, but my boy, my undead soldier, my sweet cheese, the champion who got me into reading the League of Legends lore and streaming his gameplay to others, and the one who was also robbed of his rightful place during one of the biggest events of League of Legends history. It was 𝗷𝗪𝙧 who was raising an army of ghouls to defeat the king, 𝗷𝗪𝙧 who was supposed to put the land to rest, and 𝗷𝗪𝙧 who was holding onto his tears of life to preserve himself long enough so he could make the tyrant pay for his crimes. 𝗷𝗪𝙧 met 𝗵𝒽𝒀 IRL! He was there when 𝗵𝒽𝒀 was grieving for Isolde and he was trying to help him with it. And yet, he was treated like a nobody, thrown to the side like some NPC and replaced by characters that were barely a couple weeks old because they were more conventionally attractive. I don't want to sound dramatic, but a huge chunk of my passion to Runeterra died with him during that event. For days, I grieved and cried, and not just because I was extremely overwhelmed with anger, but also because I felt like I pretty much wasted years of my life on something that I cared about, which the higher-ups within this company didn't. And so, when the Ruined King game came out, I hope that there he will have some sort of role, but unfortunately, due to the budget, that didn't happen either. The book, on the other hand, gave us a side of 𝗷𝗪𝙧 that we've never had before, which I will explain more in my Ruined King book review, but basically, he had a role. He had a purpose, and he had me literally sobbing because for once he had received the attention he deserved. I didn't expect hearing anything about him after that. But here we are, a year later, with a new story from Riot Forge who decided to fill in the gap we were missing on, which is something I genuinely believed would never happen. But here we are. The story is set a couple weeks after the Ruined King squad defeat 𝗵𝒽𝒀 and lock him up in an amulet. It's a temporary solution as they couldn't figure out how to kill him for good, and there's no telling what would happen if he gets out, which is why it was given to 𝗬𝗪𝙧 for safekeeping. Unfortunately, locking 𝗵𝒽𝒀 up in the amulet doesn't really keep others safe, especially Miss Sarah Fortune, who doesn't only have to deal with Gangplank trying to steal her turf, but also 𝗵𝒽𝒀's edgy colors of the wind serenading across Bilgewater. Because if you remember, during the game, 𝗵𝒽𝒀 was trying to sway Sarah to his side with promises of power. But she proved she's a bad bitch and sealed him inside the amulet, which Sentinels of Light kind of butchered, but we're not gonna talk about that. Fun fact, but the stone within that amulet is called Tear of the Goddess, which can only be shaped by a qualified 𝗵𝗪𝙧 artisan. So when 𝗬𝗪𝙧 finds out about it, she decides the best way to help her bestie is to destroy the amulet. The question is, how? How the fuck do you destroy an amulet with 𝗵𝒽𝒀 still inside it without releasing him? And the answer was engraved on the amulet. Although the amulet was clearly shaped by a 𝗵𝗪𝙧 artisan, on the back of it was the mark of the Blessed Isles, which is not really a surprise because back in the day, the 𝗵𝗪 and the Scholars of Helya were super fucking tight. But like, everyone's dead, so who are they gonna ask about it? Well, apparently there's some tea about a mad hermit who still lives on the Shadow Isles and claims that he's part of the Brethren of the Dusk. And since 𝗬𝗪𝙧 and her squad have already faced one of the biggest monsters of the Shadow Isles, she doesn't give two shits about some hermit. So she ventures to the Shadow Isles with one of Miss Fortune's bitches, Matteo Ruven, a captain who owed her for trying to cross her, and also the only one who knew the path to the Shadow Isles like the back of his hand. The whole first part is basically like a back and forth between 𝗬𝗪𝙧 and Miss Fortune. I love their interaction because you can tell how much they care about each other. Unfortunately, it also breaks me because 𝗬𝗪𝙧 won't help her with her battle against Gangplank, the men 𝗬𝗪𝙧 saved and broke up with, and the one who destroyed Sarah's life in trying to take over Bilgewater again. Anyway, Ruven and his crew and 𝗬𝗪𝙧 are walking through the Shadow Isles, and everything seems fine until the crew starts bickering, which turns into a loud argument that then turns into them being attacked by the living dead. 𝗬𝗪𝙧 tells everyone to stay close, but Ruven bolts into the forest and 𝗬𝗪𝙧 ends up fighting off the ghouls on her own, before Ruven comes back to them, drenched in black goo. 𝗬𝗪𝙧 calls him out for being a pussy-ass bitch for leaving his crew behind, and also grows suspicious of how the fuck did he come back from the forest when it's known that if you go there, that's guaranteed death. It wasn't long before they reached the monastery where 𝗬𝗪𝙧 then opened the door. The sound echoed through the whole place, and then, High above, someone cleared his throat and said, "Who goes there?" That someone being our boy, 𝗷𝗪𝙀. The moment our girl sees him, the first thing that goes to her head is that she had never seen anyone like him before. He was robed like a priest, but built like a boulder, with huge shoulders muscled by hard work. Not a man she could snap in half. Because those were the two categories she had of people. Ones she could snap in half, and ones she could not. It made the world easier to navigate. Deeming 𝗷𝗪𝙀 unsnappable. As 𝗹𝗹 roamed around, she was taken aback because everything that she was seeing in the monastery was going against her religion, her belief, and her very being. The courtyard beyond was filled with mistwalkers carrying scraps of wood and rocks to build tombstones, paying her and her squad no mind. 𝗹𝗹 felt her skin prickle and her mouth dry, not because of fear, but because of anger. He kept the dead in servitude, she thought. But as much as it disgusted her, she believed that this man, the last of his brethren, could still save 𝗵𝘀𝘀 from becoming another shadowy graveyard. 𝗷𝗪𝙀 could tell that her vibe was off and explained to her that the Mistwalkers weren't trapped, if that's what worried her. "I searched these islands for the tormented dead. Some of them stay here with me for a while, before they move on." He then told her that all they really do is build graves, that these are the people of the Blessed Isles, his countrymen, who are only seeking rest and peace. In his private library, he also introduced the maiden to 𝗹𝗹, who was very confused at that and questioned why the maiden hasn't moved on, which 𝗷𝗪𝙀 simply responded with, "Because she's not ready yet." It's then that he sensed the amulet 𝗹𝗹 was holding onto. The maiden whispered to him, and he knew it was 𝗵𝗹. When he saw the light in the sky and thought 𝗵𝗹 was gone, he believed the mist would go with him, but unfortunately it remained. He hoped that the spirits would cease their suffering, and perhaps that he himself would change, but unfortunately, none of that happened. And as a member of a holy order, the same as her, his persistence, faith, and dedication remained, as well as his responsibility to the spirits that weren't freed. 𝗹𝗹 felt a blaze of sympathy for him, but also got extremely pissed off at the comparison. Life is motion. To live fully is to change. To change is strength. The living can change. The dead cannot. But 𝗷𝗪𝙀 opens the earth and brings the spirits to their rest, and the world around him changes. She felt that foundation shifting beneath her feet. Can the dead build a world of their own? Can they follow their own desires? I mean, she had already met Pike, who passed her goddess's trial. "I suppose," she finally admitted. The dead could have their own kind of motion, but Naga Ďeboros would never keep spirits here beyond their years in life. She would see them reborn? Yes! As soon as possible. It would be a sin to deny them life for even a moment. "And this is our difference," 𝗷𝗪𝙀 said. "You would banish spirits before their time." 𝗹𝗹 knew that if this conversation continued, she would never settle the issue of the amulet, so she quickly changed the subject. She explained that basically they need to destroy the amulet, but due to the fact that the woman who created the amulet was long gone, there was no expert who could destroy it. Which is when 𝗷𝗪𝙀 offered to yeet it into a volcano, and 𝗹𝗹 said, "Bet." She even offered him to do the honor himself. "Come with us. You wanted to see the king destroyed. You may hurl him to the death yourself if you like." 𝗷𝗪𝙀 coughed out a green bark of laugh. "It is beyond the black mist. I doubt I will be able to help you much when I'm outside the realm of the dead." He gestured to the maiden. "My power lie with the dead, and I have not left my post in thousands of years." "Then there is no better time to try it," 𝗹𝗹 urged. "Leave this place, if only for a day. I think you will enjoy the experience." 𝗷𝗪𝙀 considered for a moment. "A curious idea," he murmured. "Doing something because I would enjoy it." He drew himself up straight and crossed his huge arms on his barrel chest. "And you're right, there is nothing I'd enjoy more than killing 𝗵𝗹." Honestly, this whole interaction between 𝗷𝗪𝙀 and 𝗹𝗹 brought me so much joy. I mean, the two are just standing there discussing their beliefs and talking about how much they want to kill 𝗵𝗹. And the fact that he actually receives the chance to do just that is exactly what we've been waiting for. Because this is 𝗷𝗪𝙀's entire purpose. Also, cross his huge arms on his barrel chest? Girl, chill. You were with Braum like a couple of weeks ago and now you're eyeing a fellow priest? Shame. But also, she's so real for that. I mean, personally, I can't disrespect my boy like that. But also, I get it. Like a great poet once said, it's cuffing season, and all the girls are leaving to get a big boy. I need a big boy. Give me a big, big, big boy. Eventually, 𝗷𝗓𝗏 leaves his maiden and his babies behind to go and assist 𝗹𝗏𝗏 with killing the angry twink. The journey was a straight shot, half a day's voyage to the island at the edge of the Shadow Isles. And 𝗹𝗏𝗏 and 𝗷𝗓𝗏 spent all night deep in conversation. His beliefs were as sincerely held as hers, but to her, his priorities were so strange. Healing the dead was more important to him than returning them to the light of life? I will never understand it, she told him. But I believe that you mean it. I do not expect you to understand, but I'm glad you listened. My babies! Once they got to their location, 𝗹𝗏𝗏 noticed it was eerily quiet. She went to grab her idol and realized that none of the crew members were snoring. In fact, they weren't even breathing. Reveal yourself, she said. Who did this? Out of the shadows stepped Reuven. But it wasn't just Reuven. A faint glow wreathed him, and behind him stood someone else. A hunched, rope-swaddled spirit dressed like a Blessed Isles scholar. His gowns were crisscrossed with arcane geometry and stained with black slime, as if he'd come wading out of some putrid swamp. Tendrils of black mist coiled around him, and above his tight, tarnished gold collar sat a wrapped face of sagging, melted skin, split by an enormous toad-like mouth. Elder Bartek. The slimy mother who destroyed Erla Grail's future of becoming a scholar himself. The reason why he went insane and was consumed by rage, hatred, and resentment that pushed him into becoming what we know today as Thresh, who then became Bartek's master, Karma. Apparently, 𝗹𝗏𝗏's suspicion was correct. When Reuven ran away into that forest, he didn't come back alone, and now she had to deal with it. But luckily for her, she didn't have to do it alone, because she had 𝗷𝗓𝗏 at her side, who, at that very moment, felt thousands of angry spirits underground and decided to bring them all back to life. 𝗹𝗏𝗏 could see spirits leaping from the sand all around her, howling with a rage so profound and concentrated she lost her breath. They stank of sulfur. The air was so thick with their charred, transparent forms, the terrain around her distorted. 𝗷𝗓𝗏 lifted his hand and flung it at Bartek. With a sound like a cracking whip, a lash of black mist flew from the cape on his back and struck the Hellion scholar. The mist around him surged and coiled. "This man is a servant of the mist," 𝗷𝗓𝗏 shouted. "The mist that awoke you and trapped you here." The spirits surged toward Bartek, drawn like hounds to a scent. "Kill him," 𝗷𝗓𝗏 commanded. Shivers. 𝗹𝗏𝗏 watched as Bartek struggled against the wraiths, but then realized that he had the amulet. She tried to get it back from him, but the wraiths dragged him with the amulet into depths of the ocean. 𝗷𝗓𝗏 shouted, tried to make them stop, but there was nothing he could do. They were locked underground for centuries, a city of souls that wanted revenge, and they wanted Bartek. "If they make their way back to the Isles, I will find them," 𝗷𝗓𝗏 said, "but I doubt I'll find that toad who took Viego." Reuven himself lay nearby, half buried by a drift of sand. 𝗹𝗏𝗏 felt for his pulse, but couldn't find one. "He has died," she told 𝗷𝗓𝗏, "but his spirit is still here," he said. Reuven came back in the form of a spirit, shocked by the fact that he's dead and extremely apologetic for what he had done and what he had caused. And although he has always been a coward, it was then, during his time of death, that he wanted to help revive the crew that fell under Bartek's spell. And so, with Reuven's knowledge and 𝗷𝗓𝗏's powers, 𝗹𝗏𝗏 watched as 𝗷𝗓𝗏 brought them back to life, healing both the living and the dead. The story ends with a beautiful moment of 𝗷𝗓𝗏 and 𝗹𝗏𝗏 discussing the future. Her telling him about how the Ruination will take over, and him telling her that he doesn't think it'll happen, as he met several in his time that would help them and would also like to see him destroyed. 𝗹𝗏𝗏 was shocked by the notion that the dead will rise up against Viego, but 𝗷𝗓𝗏 assured her that he would help them. And that's when we get to my favorite part of the story. 𝗹𝗏𝗏 felt a strange hope growing inside her. "You have a good heart," she said. "Your ability is like a promise of Naga Keboros fulfilled, I think. The power to move the dead from stagnation, I have never seen anything like it before. Yorick shrugged. I do what I must. No, 𝗟𝗚 insisted. You do more than anyone expects. You freed Reuven's spirit. You moved him after his death, and you brought motion to the trapped dead. As she spoke the words, she felt the shock of it growing within her. If this is possible, she found herself thinking, then anything is. Motion for my friends, freedom for Sarah, a better world for all of us. 𝗨𝗪𝙧𝙤𝙪𝙨 brought us together for a reason, she continued. I think we can learn from one another, as the ancients did. The possibilities blossomed in her mind. The ancient Buru and scholars of Blessed Isles had created such incredible things together. What they lacked was a common purpose, a mission uniting them towards a single goal. What your brethren wished for the world, what my faith dreams of, they are the same. Change and growth. Liberation. I do not know if the rest of your religion would agree. I will make them, 𝗟𝗚 promised. I think it is possible. In my youth, our people were close. But for now, I must return to my home. There are spirits there to whom I owe a duty. The maiden, 𝗟𝗚 thought. It is your way, persistent and dedication as you said. But one day, when you are ready to leave, the Buru will welcome an honorable monk like you. We will need an ally in the fight against Viego. No one has ever called me an honorable monk before, he mused. Y'all, I can't. Riot Forge, thank you. Thank you for pushing out this masterpiece. And thank you, Laura, for putting your heart in this and giving us what we've wanted for so damn long. Yes, Yorick hasn't killed Viego yet, but the fact that he was there, that he was involved, that he had a role, and still had a place in the future, filled all the gaps that left us so fucking angry and miserable. You guys did an outstanding job, and I hope that you will continue the storytelling journey at Riot, because you clearly are so passionate about it. You've proved yourself with the Ruined King game, prove yourselves with this glorious masterpiece, and I have no doubt you will do that with your future projects as well. During the Sentinels of Light event, Yorick didn't have a role. He was treated like an NPC and thrown to the side for Akshan to take over and do his job. But here we had Yorick in all of his glory, fighting, swaying, and caring for others like only he can, hinting at the fact that this might not be the last time we hear from him. I did my best to sum up 15 pages, but I hope you guys will go and check out the story yourself, so I'll leave a link to that down below. If you liked the video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment for the algorithm gods. And if you'd like to support me and the channel, you can check out my Patreon page or my Ukrainian aid spot fund page. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye bye.